All right, so here's the Big 12 schedule this weekend. Brock Hewitt, by the way, is in Lubbock. He'll be doing that game between Colorado and Texas Tech. West Virginia will be playing Cincinnati. That game is at FS1, 11 o'clock kick, and then there's a game at 2:30. Iowa State trying to bounce back in the second game on FS1, playing at Kansas. Colorado and Texas Tech at 3 o'clock. I'm hoping I'm going to go play golf, depending on the weather, go play golf in the morning, settle in, do a lot of the summary work that I do for high school football. We don't have a Baylor game tomorrow for me to cover, so I'm going to just sit back. I might even do a little bit of that cheese, ground sausage, Jimmy Dean or Owens, hot, with a little bit of hamburger, Rotel tomatoes, and then some of that queso dip. I might do that tomorrow and be ready for that kickoff at 3 o'clock. UCF and Arizona State in Tempe. Oklahoma State. Oh, boy, there's a note about Mike Gundy. We'll get to that in just a moment as far as the stretch of winning seasons with the head coach at Oklahoma State. That game, TCU FS1. And then a nightcap, BYU, Utah in the Holy War. We will have former BYU quarterback John Beck, as I mentioned, on the show. Arizona, Baylor, Houston, and 22nd-ranked Kansas State all have the week off. Top 25, there's a couple of bangers. What are bangers, Garrett Ross?
Those are games that are elite to the max.
Absolutely, and also almost always are two ranked teams that are playing each other. Georgia and Ole Miss right there. That's one. That game's an ABC game right there at that big-time 2:30 kick. And Alabama and LSU, 11 and 14, will be the follow-up game tomorrow night. Other games in the top 25, Oregon rolling along, unanimous number one. Will play at Maryland. Ohio State trying to continue after the win against Penn State. They play at Purdue. They should roll. Miami at Georgia Tech. I don't know. Georgia Tech at times can not just rise up. They've been pretty good, but that still looks like Miami has too much, but that is a road game. Florida, will DJ Lagway play? Will it make much of a difference anyway? Texas is nearly, I think the last I saw was like 17.5-point favorites at home at DK Royal Memorial Stadium. Washington, Penn State could be interesting. Tennessee, Mississippi State. There's Michigan and Indiana. Indiana has to just keep winning. They're like BYU. Just keep winning, and things will take care of themselves. Florida State, Notre Dame, when the season began, this is going to be a hell of a game. Notre Dame, they got a lot to play for. Florida State doesn't have much at all. Nevada, Boise State, Aston Genty, the Heisman Trophy right now among the top 4 or 5 names in that race. Pitt at home against Virginia, Oklahoma at 24th ranked Missouri. So those are the games going on. Also, 20th ranked Washington State will be on the CW late tomorrow night against Utah State. Ranked teams having the weekend off: SMU, Texas A&M, Kansas State, as I mentioned earlier, and Louisville. So here are a couple of notes in college football. By the way, thank you for being a part of the show, 365 Sports Tonight. If you're in it early, I would appreciate it if you hit that like button. Hit that like button. We got some of you that monitor the chat room that are pretty good about going. We have 275 people who are monitoring or in the chat room. That doesn't mean that's all who's watching, because we're also on 365 Sports YT on Twitter and their Sikkim 365 app. Hit the like button, and if you're new to us, please subscribe if you don't mind. We would appreciate that too. Arizona State honoring the late Pat Tillman. Played with the Sun Devils, played with the Cardinals in the NFL, was killed friendly fire. He joined, of course, armed forces after what happened with 9/11, and he's out. And Arizona State will honor him with these really cool, kind of a, I don't know, how would you describe that, Garrett? Almost looks like a pilot's helmet you would see flying a jet fighter, and then, of course, a combination with something else.
It also kind of reminds me of, like, having a shield. Like, you make the thing out of the logo out of a shield. That's kind of what it reminds me of. It's a very good look. It's a very clean logo that they came up with, and it's just a great cause that they're going to be able to rock it. So I'm excited to see what they can do in these uniforms.
Yeah, Veterans Day, of course, coming up on Monday. Let's not forget that. Also, Army, speaking of military, 8-0. They're a 6-point favorite to win at North Texas, just a little bit north of where we are in Denton. That's from Circus Sports. How about this? They have not trailed in a game this season. Remember, Indiana was in that I guess group, but they had to bounce back and forth last week and eventually separated for an easy win. Have not trailed at all. Saturday will have been 358 days and 12 games since they last lost. They lost to UMass in October of 2023. The Black Knights have not trailed in a game since that loss to UMass. Now, I mentioned Mike Gundy, and we know that Oklahoma State has to win out to finish 6-6 to get to a bowl game. And even then, they may not finish 500 because like Baylor in 2022, they were 6-6 and lost to Air Force in a bowl game, and they did not have a winning season at 6-7. Here is a list of the longest consecutive winning seasons in college football. History, coaches. Bobby Bowden, unbelievable run. Bear Bryant, yeah, he was pretty good too. Tom Osborne, 25 years as the head coach at Nebraska following Bob Devaney, 25 consecutive winning seasons. God, those were the days. That's going to make me want to have a moment of reflection. It's been a long time. Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech, of course, his son's at South Carolina. There's Joe Paterno, LaVelle Edwards, Darrell Royal, Mike Gundy, 18 consecutive winning seasons, trying to tie Royal and LaVelle Edwards, and this is in deep jeopardy. There's Bob Stoops at Oklahoma, Fielding Yost back in the day, in the early parts of the 1900s, Nick Saban, time that he took over at, Alabama, and then, of course, went all the way through last year playing in the semifinals, losing to Michigan. Don James, a great coach at Washington, and Barry Switzer, 1973 to 1988. The only one with an active streak right now in that mode, in that level, at those numbers, is Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, and that is in jeopardy. I should have looked up, and I'm sorry that I did not, of who would be next in line.
It's got to be Whittingham, right?
I don't, yeah, maybe.
Probably.
Yeah. I'll try to maybe dig into that. If you want to do some homework in the chat room, we would love for you to do that too. All right, let's see here, Garrett. We got some good stuff today. I got a note about Texas Beef House we'll get to in a little bit. I spoke with a couple of people within the football program. You know, I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe what they've done. They've won 3 in a row. They do not play this weekend. But what they've done is they've been able to, like, all of a sudden, the program that could not run the football is now running the football. A team that could not move the ball well enough or consistently enough on offense, they're putting up 500 yards a game and they're on a 3-game winning streak. And they're off this week. And that doesn't mean that when they get back, everything's fine. They can't blink or flinch. But here's kind of what has been said. They took Sidney Fagar and moved him to left tackle. And he's very athletic at the left tackle position. And most left tackles are the most highly paid offensive linemen at any level in football. He has given them someone on the left-hand side to watch the quarterback's blind side, Sawyer Robertson. And it's also given them a little bit of oomph. Remember when Dawson Pendergrass 2 weeks ago against Oklahoma State was in that scrum and then popped loose for the rest of it for about 50 yards or so? It was Fugar who, by the way, kind of dragged him through that mud, through that pile. And he has given them, Mason Miller made that move, the offensive line coach, and it really has made a difference for the offensive line in protection for Sawyer Robertson, but also in the run game that had been kind of just dormant. So there we are with that. All right, Garrett, who is most likely, let's put those games up in the Big 12.
All right.
On the chat room, I'm about to get into the chat room. Last time I went in the chat room, for some reason, I've kind of had this, it's been stuck. And I think it's people who are trying to eliminate me from the chat room because they know I will eliminate them. So let me get to it. Who among these games right here is most likely of the 3 ranked teams to lose? Is it Iowa State? Is it Colorado at Tech? Or is it BYU against their rival in Salt Lake City, Rice-Eccles Stadium, Utah?
I think for me, it's Colorado. When we were doing our picks this week, I picked Texas Tech to win this game. I just feel like Texas Tech is in a position where they had so much flack and they caught so much hell over the helmet communications thing. You lost 2 games in a row. And then you were able to go and kind of put all of that to bed last week as you went into Ames and upset Iowa State. You have a little momentum here. Baron Morton is healthy, whereas he's been banged up the past couple of weeks. You got him back healthy. I think their receiving core is starting to click. We saw what Taj Brooks can do when he's healthy. Now, I know Colorado has played a lot more physical on defense, and we saw what they were able to do against UCF earlier this season when stopping the run with R.J. Harvey and them. But I think right now going into Lubbock, and I think it was yesterday when Coach Barnett was on with us, and he was mentioning how a lot of these guys haven't been in that environment before. I think this is one where Texas Tech has the momentum to pull off the upset. You have a lot of all eyes are going to be on this. You've already struggled at home this year. You got beat by Baylor. You go back to that ACU game earlier in the year. People have come in there and kind of pushed them around. So I think there's more emphasis on Texas Tech in this game. And I know we were talking earlier off air about like the weather and all the travel going in and people are having issues getting into Lubbock and everything. I think that's one where it's setting up for Colorado to get upset. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen, but out of those matchups, that's the one I would look at. I think Tech could get Colorado.
Would that, and I know because Colorado's ranked,
right?
Would that be an upset if Tech beat them in Lubbock?
I mean, I think given the standings that come out, given Colorado's positioning in where if they take care of business and everything falls as it may, that they can find their path into Arlington and into the CFP, yeah, I think it's definitely an upset. Now, I think they're pretty even matched teams, but I think that given all that's at stake for Colorado, it would definitely be an upset if Tech was able to pull that off.
All right, that will be interesting to see. Colorado 21 on the road against Texas Tech. That game at 3:00 tomorrow. About the time you think BYU's just playing so well and Utah's a mess, it's a rivalry game. Mm-hmm. You really don't know. All it takes is something to happen early in the game, or maybe Utah does what they used to do, which is grind it out into the game, make a play, and win it. And, of course, Iowa State, you wonder if there's a hangover. If there's a hangover and they start a little sluggish, KU with their offense, even though they've been up and down like a roller coaster, KU still the ability to maybe get going on offense. So that game, there are a lot of good ones in the weekend of the Big 12.
Also, I think if you go into the Holy War there, I think it's of note yesterday when we had Stevenson Sylvester on that he mentioned how the Utes have gotten healthy across the board on defense. That's something that they haven't really had going for them the past couple of weeks. You add that onto a rivalry game, you're playing at home, that could become a factor for BYU. But I mean, at the same time, the Cougars they've gone up against this in the past. They're not afraid of this. They've seen defenses that are very similar. So, but with Utah being healthy and it being a rivalry game, I think that's something to consider as well, because that could benefit the Utes.
At Kansas and Oklahoma State, where they are both now with 6 losses with no room for error. KU losing the last time they were out, they lost to K-State by 2? Mm-hmm. And now playing Iowa State to see what they can do after an off week, and maybe they were able to get a few things straightened out. So there we are with the Big 12 and what are the ranked teams. 3 of them, Kansas State has the weekend off, but will it be Iowa State, BYU, or Colorado, in your opinion, who might be the ones that go down inside the Big 12? Conundrum, Buffalo's lose. Tech has Mo. Paxton, BYU would think will crush Utah. Let's see, Jayhawk Chimp, somehow Kansas is getting only 2 points. Kind of amazing when talking about the line. The Holy War being a rivalry is the most likely from Erica. Clint, Colorado is the best quarterback versus Tech, who has the best running back in the conference. Let's see, Kyle Visser, Jayhawk Champ. Kansas just scored 42 in the top 25 defense. They're playing better. They scored 29, I think, wasn't it? Kansas? Wait a minute.
I believe.
Hold on. I just looked at them. Kansas's last game out, they scored 42 against Houston. They lost to Kansas State 29-27. They've scored 40 twice against Houston, and then their opening game against Linwood.
But that's saying something to put that up against that Houston defense with how stout they are.
No, yeah, against the top 25 defense, you're exactly right, and that's what Kyle was alluding to. Let's see here. I'm not sure either of these three are going to lose this weekend from Dustin. I would bet Colorado is riding some major energy right now. Let's see. Xavier in a game that's not a part of ranked teams, but TCU will lose to the Pokes. Barney's built. Texas Tech will prevail. And let's see. I thought I saw a couple more. Conundrum, Holy War, only game on TV late Saturday night. That's absolutely correct. Erica, interesting story and stats around Oklahoma State with Coach Gundy. Like I said, he's trying to get one more year, trying to get to what, 19 consecutive winning seasons. If you look at this stat, put that stat up again if you don't mind, if it's a graphic on the coaches with a winning season. There's one coach who's active, and that's when Garrett brought up, is it Whittingham who's next in line? This sounds like a Rudy's commercial. Whittingham may be next in line. I don't know who it is. I'm talking about FBS, but that's an amazing streak, and that's why you have this kind of – I'm not speaking for Oklahoma State fans, but you kind of have where people are torn. They're pissed off because it's been a bad year. It's been an incredibly – they haven't won a conference game. And at times they have been blown out. And then there's the consistency of what he's brought to the table, which would end with a loss, the next loss, and they are not going to a bowl game. They will not have a winning season.
Okay, I need your opinion on something. I struggle with Mike Gundy because the consistency's there, you can't deny. I mean, obviously the numbers back that up. But at the end of the day, how many programs would he be able to work at like this where he has time to do, like, okay, what big games has he actually won? He's got what, one Big 12 championship?
Who's that? Gundy? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, they've beaten Oklahoma a very small amount of times. Let's see here.
Like how many, like think about, like we see, all right, for instance, all the smoke was around Billy Napier until yesterday, right? And we saw, think about Mark Richt, what happened at Georgia. He was winning 10, 11 games a year. Like, how many programs could Gundy do this at before people fight? Because it feels like it's starting to wear, like 20-something years in. But I don't think he would have gotten this long somewhere else without the big games. Like, I just don't know how he doesn't get grouped in with the James Franklin and everybody else you talk about when it comes to big games and not living up to it. That's what's always confused me about Mike Gundy. Now, this is also coming from somebody who's a fan of a team who wins national championships and stuff. So I don't know what the standard is.
All right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. But here's what I like to look at when people say that. And it's not it's a valid question or comment or even opinion. What were they before him?
This is a great point. Yes, exactly.
So Les Miles was there, and they were okay. They had, under Les Miles, before he went to LSU, they had 3 winning seasons. They finished 7-5 his last year, 9-4 the year before that. Lost in the Cotton Bowl. Before Les Miles, you had Bob Simmons. That was a nightmare. Before Bob Simmons, you had Pat Jones, and really, really struggled his last several years. He had 2 back-to-back 10-win seasons in 1987 and 88. Went to bowl games, of course. And I think that was when they had Barry Sanders and Hartley Dykes and Thurman freaking Thomas. So, all right. Before that, Jimmy Johnson. What a lot of people, I brought this up, I think, during a commercial break earlier this year with Paul. Jimmy Johnson won 8 games, 4 games, 7 games, 3 games, 7 games.
You think it would be a lot more with the prestige and the Miami success?
Went to Miami.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, but obviously they did the right thing. Miami was a great hire. It was a great hire for the Cowboys too. So if you look at Oklahoma State's football history, I'm going back to 1914. 1914. They have 1984, 1987 and 88, 3 10-win seasons with Pat Jones. And with Gundy, they've had 11, they've had 12, they've had 10, they've had 10, they've had 10, they've had 10, they've had 12, and they've had 10 wins. That is why you're patient with him. He's had an incredibly successful stretch for a program. He's had more 10-win seasons since he took over in 2005 than they had for almost 100 years.
I get that.
The highest rank they've ever finished with Gundy, they finished in the top 10 a couple of different times. They might have a really good year, but they didn't finish like with a bowl game. Like in 2021 when they lost to Baylor with a bang-bang play, they did finish 5th in the country. They finished 5th in the country. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 top 10 finishes. And if you were to go through the history of that program, I don't know if they've ever had but 1 or 2. And I'm talking back in the 1940s. If you're a Oklahoma State fan, help us out. I'm glad I was able to get that win-loss record up. We'll have Sam Conn in just a moment. And then also today, loaded up with Grayson Grundhafer, former BYU quarterback John Beck, who trains a lot of quarterbacks who have been at BYU but also in college football. Mickey on the Cowboys as they host Philadelphia. Scott Drew, spoke with him earlier, recorded that interview with him earlier. I used the word hammered too much, mainly because I've seen Emory and Garrett and Paul on the road. And so I've just seen it. I've used that word before. They got bludgeoned by Gonzaga. They got humiliated by Gonzaga. And then also we'll have Paul's top 5. So I'm looking forward to it. I had a high school game last night. No high school game tonight. And so Paul's out. He's on a trip down to Alabama. And then Craig's out for the weekend. I'll be back with all of them on Monday.